5 money habits that separate the rich from the poor. Here's a statistic that will blow your mind. 99.9% of Warren Buffett's net worth was accumulated after his 60th birthday. Think about that for a second. When he was 60, he was already worth $2 billion. But he kept going, and now at 93, he's accumulated over $250 billion if you count what he's given away. So what did he do differently? Was it intelligence? No, there are lots of smart people who never build wealth. Was it luck? No, he's been investing for over 70 years. Was it perfect timing? No, he started as a kid and kept going through multiple recessions and crashes. The difference is habits. Specifically 5 money habits that separate the rich from the poor. And here's what most people get wrong. These habits aren't about earning more money. They're about thinking about money completely differently. You can earn $200,000 and be broke if you have poor habits. You can earn $50,000 and become wealthy if you have rich habits. The difference isn't your income. It's your daily habits with money practiced consistently over decades. Today I'm going to show you exactly what those 5 habits are. And the best part? You can start every single one of them today. Comment rich habits if you're ready to learn what separates wealthy thinkers from broke thinkers. Habit 1. They prioritize endurance over intelligence. The first habit that separates the rich from the poor is something most people completely misunderstand. They think wealth comes from brilliant ideas or perfect timing. They think you need to be the smartest person in the room. But here's what I learned from studying wealthy people. They prioritize endurance over intelligence every single time. The big wealth almost never comes from some great idea that surges out of nowhere. It's usually a pretty good idea that you can keep going for 40 or 50 years. That's where the real money comes from. Warren Buffett is the perfect example. When he was 60 years old, he was already worth $2 billion. Think about that. $2 billion. He could have sold everything, retired to some beach, and had an absolutely amazing life. But he kept going. Now he's 93 and still working. And if you count the money he's given away, he's accumulated over $250 billion. The reason isn't that he got smarter after 60, it's because he kept it going. Bill Gates could have sold Microsoft in the 1970s and made $10 million, which would have been a great little life. But he kept it going. And kept it going. Yahoo offered Mark Zuckerberg $1 billion in cash when he was 19 years old. $1 billion at 19. And he said, no, I'm going to keep doing this thing. That's the common denominator you see with every wealthy person. Endurance and longevity is usually where the big wealth is made. Larry Ellison, who founded Oracle, did an interview in the 90s where someone asked him about Bill Gates. And Ellison said something I'll never forget. He said, yes, Bill is very smart, but there are a lot of smart people out there. No offense, but there are a lot of people smarter than Bill Gates. But nobody has more endurance than Bill Gates. He will outwork you every single time. He'll keep it going for as long as he needs to keep it going to beat you. That's his skill. It's not intelligence, it's endurance. And this matters because any endeavor that's going to pay off is going to be difficult. There are going to be more roadblocks and speed bumps and complete collapses than you want. It's absolutely inevitable. NVIDIA, one of the most valuable companies in the world, has an unofficial motto: we are always 30 days from going out of business. They're not actually, but they understand what's true for every business. Business is hard. Every company is a knife fight. You need the perseverance to get through that. Most people try something for a year or two. It doesn't work out perfectly, so they quit and try something else. Then quit that and try another thing. They spend their whole lives starting and stopping. Meanwhile, wealthy people pick one thing and refuse to quit. They understand that endurance beats intelligence, that consistency beats brilliance, that showing up for 40 years beats being the smartest person for 4 years. David Senra, who runs a podcast about historical entrepreneurs, said something that stuck with me. He said founders tell him all the time that they're going to sell their company next year. And he asks them, did you learn anything from Rockefeller or Steve Jobs or Bill Gates? Those people ran their companies for 50 years. They ran their companies until they died. These aren't people looking to create something and flip it. They kept it going as long as they possibly could. That's the first habit. Endurance over everything. Habit 2. They think in compound terms. The second habit that separates the rich from the poor is how they think about money. Most people think in linear terms. They save $100 and think, okay, I have $100 more. That's linear thinking. Rich people think in compound terms. They invest $100 today and think, this will be $1,000 in 30 years. That's exponential thinking. And this difference in thinking is the difference between building wealth and staying stuck. Here's the problem. We're not made to think exponentially. We're not wired to think in multiplicative terms. If I ask you, what's 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8, you can figure that out in your head pretty quickly. It's 32. But if I say, what's 8 times 8 times 8 times 8, forget about it. You can't do it in your head. Our brains don't work that way. But compound interest is multiplicative, not additive. And that's why most people never grasp how powerful it really is. Warren Buffett understood this so deeply that it changed how he saw every single expense. There's a story in his biography about how he wouldn't want to get haircuts when he was building his wealth because, in his mind, a $2 haircut would cost $10,000. His wife would be confused. What do you mean by $10,000? It costs $2. And he'd explain, no, if I invest that $2 and leave it alone for 50 years, it'll grow to $10,000. Same with car washes. He'd tell his wife that's a $5,000 car wash. She'd say it costs $1. And he'd say, but if I invest that $1 and leave it alone for decades. Now, I'm not saying you should skip haircuts and car washes. Please don't do that. But understand what Buffett understood. He wasn't thinking about what something costs today. He was thinking about what he could grow that money into in the future. Every dollar had a future value in his mind, not just a present cost. This is why compound interest is what actually builds wealth. And the people who get rich from it aren't the people who earn very high returns. It's people who earn good returns for a long period of time. It returns to the power of time. And if you remember 8th grade math, that exponent, that time component, is doing all the heavy lifting. If you can be good, just average, but you can do it for 40 years, you end up phenomenal. Most investors are trying to find the highest returns. They want to beat the market, find the next big stock, and make brilliant trades. But you're much more likely to do well if you just aim for average returns with incredible endurance. Take index funds, the most boring, bland, average way to invest. You own Apple and Amazon and Coca-Cola. You own all the companies in the world. If you invest in that simple way consistently for 30 years with no skill, no expertise, no stock tips from anyone, you will almost certainly end up in the top 1% of investors. You'll beat 95% of Wall Street professionals who were trying to outsmart the market but couldn't keep it going for 3 decades. This works both ways, though. Smoking 1 cigarette isn't a big deal. Smoking 2 packs a day for 30 years is a huge deal. Small actions in the moment aren't dramatic, but repeated consistently over decades, they compound into either magic or disaster. The rich understand this. They see every dollar, every decision, every small choice through the lens of what it becomes over time. That's compound thinking, and it's the second habit that changes everything. Real talk. What's the longest you've stuck with any financial strategy? Comment on your number of years. Habit 3. They save for independence. The third habit is about why rich people save money, and it's completely different from what most people think. Most people save for something specific. They're saving for a new car, a vacation, or a down payment on a house. And that's fine, but here's the problem with that approach. Once they buy the thing, the savings stop. The motivation disappears. They're back to spending everything they make. Rich people save for a completely different reason. They save for independence. And that motivation never runs out because you can never have too much independence. Here's what I mean. If I save $1 today, I have $1 more independence today. I benefit from that right now. I feel more independent because of it, and I am more independent because of it. I think most people's top financial goal, whether they know it or not, is independence. What they really want from money is autonomy. The ability to do things on their own terms, to live the life they actually want to live. And the oxygen of independence is savings. Debt is the polar opposite. Debt is a piece of your future that somebody else owns. When you go into debt, you're saying that 3 years from now, this company owns a part of my time. They own my labor in the future. Savings is the opposite. Savings says that in the future I have this stored up. I have consumption stored up. I can do whatever I want with it. Debt is slavery to the future. Savings is freedom in the future. Let me show you what independence actually looks like. You lose your job. If you have savings, you don't have to panic and take the first available position. You can take your time and find the right one. That's independence. You have a medical emergency. If you have savings, you have options on how to treat them and where to go. That's independence. You're in a toxic work environment. If you have savings, you can walk away. That's independence. You want to start a business. If you have savings, you have the runway to try. That's independence. Every dollar you save is a token of independence. It's not about having stuff. It's about having options. And this is a mindset shift that makes saving so much easier. If you view savings as I need to save for something in the future, that's hard for people to sustain. But if you shift your mindset and say, I'm saving so I can become more independent, so that if I lose my job, I don't have to panic, so that I have options in my life, that changes everything. Viewing every dollar that you save as a token of independence makes it so much more compelling. There are 2 topics in life that will impact you whether you like them or not. That's health and money. It doesn't matter if you're not interested in those topics. Those topics are of interest to you, and they will impact your life. You can have a wonderful life, not knowing anything about chemistry or meteorology, but you cannot have a good life if you don't understand money, because money determines your independence, and independence is what actually makes people happy. The rich understand this deeply. They're not saving to buy more stuff. They already have everything they need. They're saving to buy more independence, more options, more control over their own time and decisions. That's the 3rd habit. Save for independence, not for stuff. Habit 4. They ignore the spectators. The 4th habit that separates the rich from the poor is about who you're trying to impress with your money. And this one might sting a little bit, but it's important. So much of modern spending, especially in the social media age over the last 10 or 15 years, is about trying to get strangers' attention. We're putting on a show, putting on a performance for people that we think are paying attention to us. But here's the brutal truth. They're absolutely not. They're not paying any attention to you whatsoever. Yet we spend thousands of dollars, sometimes tens of thousands, trying to impress people who will forget us in 5 seconds. Rich people think about attention completely differently. They know exactly whose attention actually matters. For most people, it's about 6 to 10 people whose opinions genuinely matter to their happiness. Your spouse or partner, your kids, if you have them, your parents, maybe 3 to 5 really close friends. That's it. That's the list. From there, the value of anyone's attention declines really fast. Colleagues have some importance. Acquaintances very little. And strangers? 0. The person driving down the street next to you could not care less about your life. Yet so much of what we do with money is a performance to impress that stranger. Let me give you a thought experiment that changed how I think about spending. If I bought a Ferrari tomorrow, would my wife love me more? No. Would my kids admire me more? Absolutely not. Would my close friends respect me more? Not at all. The people whose attention I actually want and whose opinions I actually care about are not impacted by the fancy things I would buy. So why would I spend money to impress people who don't matter to me? The rich understand this deeply. They put tremendous effort into fostering the relationships with those 6 or 7 people whose love and respect they actually want, and very little effort on everyone else. This frees up an enormous amount of money because the people who matter to them don't care about fancy cars or designer clothes or expensive watches. They care about character, about time spent together, about being present and genuine. You can learn so much about someone's psychology through how they spend money. If I learned about your politics, I might learn something about you. But if I sat down with you and you told me everything about your money, how much you make, how much you spend, what you value, what you want to do, I'd learn so much more about your personality. Money reveals what we really care about and who we're really trying to impress. And here's what I've realized. Most of us are performing for an audience that isn't watching. We're spending money to get validation from strangers who aren't paying attention and whose opinions shouldn't matter to us anyway. Meanwhile, the 6 or 7 people whose love would actually make us happy, they don't need us to drive a fancy car or wear expensive clothes. They just need us to be present, to be genuine, to invest time and energy into those relationships. The 4th habit is about lowering your need for external validation and raising your focus on the people who actually matter. Stop performing for the spectators. They're not watching anyway. And even if they were, their applause is worthless compared to the love of the people who really know you. Quick check. Calculate your months of independence, savings, monthly expenses. Comment your number. Under 3 months equals red zone. Over 12 equals freedom zone. Where are you? Habit 5. They balance today versus tomorrow. The 5th and final habit is about balance, and it's the one that ties everything together. Because you can do the first 4 habits perfectly and still get it wrong if you don't understand this. Some people save everything for the end. They never enjoy life. They deny themselves every pleasure, every experience, every moment of joy because they're always preparing for tomorrow. And then they die with millions in the bank and a life full of wasted time. Other people spend everything today. They have no security, no preparation, no thought for the future. And their future self suffers for it. Both extremes are wrong. Rich people find the balance. Let me tell you 2 stories that illustrate this. I once had a coworker who was maybe 10 years older than me. He had $25,000 of credit card debt at 17% interest, which I could not fathom at the time. And all of that debt came from trips he had taken. He'd traveled through Europe, through Asia, had incredible experiences, but put it all on his credit card. At the time, I remember thinking, you idiot, do you understand what this is going to do to your future? And then he died when he was about 32 years old, and suddenly my perspective completely changed. I was so glad he took those trips. I was so glad he went into that credit card debt. Because the truth was that at age 32, he had seen more and done more than most people would at age 62. He lived his short life fully, even if it wasn't financially optimal. On the other hand, there's David Cassidy, who was a very famous childhood actor with an incredible career. Very rich, very famous, had an enviable life by any measure. And his last words before he died were, "So much wasted time." You can't think of sadder last words than that. Even with all his wealth and success, he felt he had wasted his life somehow. This is where Jeff Bezos had a brilliant framework. He said he started Amazon because he tried to imagine himself at age 90 looking back, and he wanted to have the fewest regrets possible. That should be your framework for life. When you're on your deathbed, what will give you the fewest regrets? Understanding what you're likely to regret in the future is probably the broadest definition of risk. Nobody has perfect calibration on this. If you got a terminal diagnosis tomorrow, you might look back and wish you'd spent more time with family or taken that trip. But you also might look back and be grateful that your family will be okay financially because you saved. The balance is different for everyone, and it changes throughout your life. As a parent, if I were on my deathbed tonight, I would take so much joy knowing that my wife and kids are going to be okay because of what I saved. The worst situation would be looking at them and knowing they're screwed financially. But that might change when my kids are self-sufficient. Then maybe I'll spend more freely. The fifth habit is understanding that money isn't just about maximizing wealth. It's about minimizing regrets. Save enough to be secure. Spend enough to actually live. Find your balance. That's what separates people who die wealthy and miserable from people who die wealthy and fulfilled. Let me bring this full circle. Remember that statistic from the beginning? 99.9% of Warren Buffett's wealth came after age 60. Not because he got smarter, because he kept these 5 habits going for decades and balanced them perfectly. Here's what we covered. Habit 1. Endurance over intelligence. Keep it going longer than anyone else. Don't quit after 2 years. Habit 2. Think in compound terms. See every dollar as what it becomes over time, not just what it costs today. Habit 3. Save for independence, not for stuff. Every dollar saved is a token of freedom. Habit 4. Ignore the spectators. Stop performing for strangers who aren't watching and don't care. Habit 5. Balance today versus tomorrow. Minimize regrets, don't just maximize wealth. These aren't random tips. They're a complete system. Endurance is the foundation because nothing works without time. Compound thinking is the multiplier that turns time into wealth. Independence is the purpose that makes it all worthwhile. Ignoring spectators protects you from lifestyle inflation, and balance ensures you actually live while building wealth. The brutal truth? The difference between rich and poor isn't income. It's these 5 daily habits practiced for decades. You can earn $50,000 with these habits and become wealthy. You can earn $200,000 without them and stay broke. You can start today. Pick one habit this week. Add another next month. In 5 years, you'll be unrecognizable financially. In 20 years, you'll be wealthy. Comment rich habits and tell me which habit you're starting today. Habit 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. The rich aren't smarter than you. They're not luckier. They just have different habits. Habits they practice every single day for decades. Your financial future starts with the habits you choose right now.